Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. The supreme Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, may we all generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let's continue with the chapter on the impermanence of life in words of my perfect teacher. There are 7 meditations altogether in this chapter. Today we'll cover the 6th one, which is the guide of uncertainty of the circumstances of death. Actually, each meditation guide on impermanence is profoundly important. If you often go through the contents in the words of my perfect teacher, meditate on the very guide, get familiar with it, and put it into real practice from time to time. Ultimately, you will be able to reflect on it at all times, and you can always experience a sense of impermanence in your mind. Then your practice will surely succeed. This means that we must fully merge and integrate the Dharma we've learned into our minds. We should not simply cling to the verbal meaning of the Dharma, but should completely internalize its meaning with our minds. Of course, it is worthy to be vastly learned, but if your mind is not tamed and peaceful, even if you have mastered thousands of sutras and shastras, and you can memorize all the Sutrayana and Vajrayana teachings by heart, it will not be of great benefit to you. When you are about to leave this world alone, or when you have to face birth, aging, sickness and death in daily life. Without constantly reminding yourself of the impermanence or putting the teachings into real practice, you can easily deviate from or even act contrary to the Dharma. Then the Dharma and the practitioner will be completely separated, as if moving in opposite directions. It happens and is very dangerous. Therefore, we practitioners should often reflect on these supreme Vajra words passed down from the great masters. Now, let's continue with the following original text. For us beings in Jambudvipa, from the moment of birth, death is certain. Yet the manner, circumstances, and time of death remain uncertain. Throughout the world, for all beings, whether human or other creatures, as long as they are born, they move closer to death with each passing day from the moment they arrive in this world. We often say in the same way that all people must eventually die, and there's no escaping death. Many people in the world are aware of this. However, when it comes to specifically how one will die, and where it will happen, or under what circumstances and at what time death will occur, these are completely unthought of by majority of people. Therefore, what sets us practitioners apart from worldly people is that we must deeply contemplate the uncertainty of the circumstances of death. None of us can say for sure that our death will come about at a particular time or place, in a certain way, or as a result of this or that cause. We can be almost certain that all the fellow practitioners here will pass away within 100 years. None of us will be left in this world. Whereas how we are going to die cannot be predicted. Some may die in the hospital, some may die on the road, some may fall into a river, some may commit suicide, some may be killed in natural disasters like earthquakes or floods, and so forth. So if we ask ourselves, how and where are we going to die? Probably no one can really tell. Many Dharma practitioners have told me that they strongly wish to die here in Larungar. But this is what you say when you are still in good health. Once you fall ill, given the poor medical conditions here, you'd rather leave here to see a doctor elsewhere. As a result, you may enter Paranirvara in your hometown, instead of at Larungar. If we were certain about the exact time of our death, such as in several decades or centuries, then we could have enough time to make plans for our practice, For example, if I knew I had 10, 20, or 30 years until death, I would think, in 30 years, I could perform one session of meditation and recite mantras every day. Thus, we could plan and arrange our time properly. But no one has the certainty of when death will come. The only thing that we can be sure of is the fact that our time in this life is constantly diminishing and never increasing. As Shantideva says, never halting night or day, my life drains constantly away, and from no other source does increase come. How can there not be death for such as me? Our lifespan is passing unceasingly, day and night, without any pause. There is no increase of it at all. Then how could my life not end? The Bardo teachings and other practical guides use the following analogy about our life. A man slips over a cliff and is falling to his doom when he grasps a clump of grass that arrests his fall. Soon a white mouse and a black mouse appear and start alternatively nibbling the blades of grass, so that gradually less grass is left in the man's hand. He hangs there, and below him is a deep abyss with a beast opening its mouth ferociously. Meanwhile, honey is dripping from a bee's nest above him. He savors the honey so much that he completely forgets the dangerous situation he is in. This is extremely foolish behavior. Our life is as fragile as the clump of grass the man grasps here. The white mouse is day and the black mouse is night, representing the inexorable passage of time by which our life gradually diminishes. Once we fall, we are in great danger of falling into the lower realms, like a deep abyss, with a beast opening its mouth. However, people are still obsessed with the 5 worldly desires represented by the honey, completely unaware of the Lord of Death waiting ahead. Therefore, we should contemplate and meditate constantly on death and impermanence. It is indeed uncertain when impermanence will arrive. Many people have a grand life blueprint for the future. This includes some lay practitioners who visit Larungar. They say, "I am not available now. I have to leave Larungar and go to work to earn money. 4 or 5 years from now, I will come back for my ordination, and then I will devote myself to practice." Nevertheless, after they return to their hometowns, some of them never come back, due to their wishes are halted. Some have already died. Everything is impermanent, and even short-term plans often encounter changes. For instance, not long ago when we went on pilgrimage to a mountain near Larungar, a young Tibetan lady who just graduated from Qinghai University School of Medicine came to see me. She had watched my teaching videos, including The Way of the Bodhisattva, and had developed great faith in the Dharma. So she insisted on taking ordination at Larungar. When she came to Larungar before, she didn't have an opportunity to see me. Later on, maybe some of you still remember, when we were on pilgrimage to that mountain, the young Tibetan lady and her mother came to see me. At that time, she showed great faith in the Dharma. She truly felt the rarity of human life and no longer wanted to waste her life on worldly pursuits. And she felt it would be invaluable to be ordained and practice at Larungar. She was determined to get ordained here, so I didn't refuse her. Then she went back home to raise money to buy a cabin here. 2 days ago, her mother called me, crying, saying that her daughter originally planned to come here to become a Buddhist nun as soon as possible. But unexpectedly, impermanence came that her daughter was diagnosed with terminal cancer at hospital and couldn't come to Larungar anymore. The young Tibetan lady also called me, saying that she was happy she had studied the Dharma before her death, so she was not too scared of it. She also said that she had always wanted to become a nun at Larungar, but unfortunately it didn't work out in this life. So she vowed to take ordination under my seat in her next life. She also mentioned her other wish. She had noticed some senior nuns at Larungar wore ragged shoes, which I also mentioned in my book, Footprints on the Journey. Since some people donate money for her medical treatment, she would arrange for the excess money to be sent to me after her passing. I can then pass it on to senior nuns or use it to help other people in need. She would dedicate this merit to all beings. I was sad upon hearing her news that the impermanence came to her way far too soon, at the age of 26. Although she really wanted to come to Larungar, she couldn't. On the one hand, due to the long journey. On the other, her father wouldn't agree because he is a renowned doctor and has asked her to undergo chemotherapy as soon as possible. Although there is no cure for her cancer, he still wanted to give it a try. Through this real case, we can see that impermanence happens so often around us, but many people don't take it seriously, feeling it only happens to others and will never occur to themselves. In particular, a lot of people who have never studied Buddhism, as well as those who have studied Buddhism but have not delved deeply, tend to lack the view of impermanence. Thus, I hope through the teaching this time, we can all contemplate the principle of impermanence thoroughly and reflect on whether everything in life is truly impermanent. Examine how the mountains, rivers, and 4 seasons are constantly changing, how our innate faith, compassion, greed, and anger are constantly changing, and how our most cherished body and life don't have even a scrap of permanence or stability. We must close our eyes and reflect carefully on these issues. As the past eminent masters said, we should put our hands on our chests, close our eyes, concentrate our minds, and think, how much longer can I live in this world? Sadly, millions of people have never thought about impermanence. They only care about immediate benefits and blindly pursue pleasures in this life. What do they gain and lose in the end? Many people should ponder this. So, it has been clearly elaborated here that each of us must consider the principle of impermanence of life. Now the original text says, in this world, the causes for sustaining life are pitifully few, while causes of death are as numerous as hairs on a cow. As Aryadeva taught, causes of death are countless, while causes for life are scarce, and even these can become causes of death. Aryadeva may have taught this in other texts as well. I remember Nagarjuna also said in Precious Garland that the causes of death are many, those of staying alive are few. These too can become causes of death. Therefore, always perform the practices. So, in this world, there are countless causes of death. For example, fire, earthquakes, floods, poisons, precipices, savages, wild beasts. There are all kinds of mortal dangers around us in this world. The external causes of death we face are indeed exceptionally numerous. Every day when you watch the news on TV, read newspapers, or through reports from other media, you can find news about disasters happening all over the world. Basically, people all around the world are continually facing various disasters. Apart from natural disasters, the imbalance of the 4 elements within us is also a fatal cause that cannot be ignored. Buddhist scriptures mention 404 kinds of human diseases, 80,000 types of negative forces, and more. So, causes of sickness or death are numerous, while causes of life are so few. Even food, clothing, and other things, which are usually considered as life-sustaining, can turn into causes of death at times. Therefore, actually, there are almost no causes of staying alive for us in this world. People normally think that medicines, clothes, food, and various other necessities of daily life are made for the sake of living. However, in reality, how many of these truly become causes of staying alive? Almost none. Especially nowadays, science becomes more and more advanced, but many people know nothing about the law of karma So they try to make money by hook or by crook, such as making large numbers of weapons and producing counterfeit, unsafe, and shoddy goods that directly and indirectly threaten people's lives. Thus, the causes of life are indeed few. Furthermore, dietary supplements and fitness nutrition products that are supposed to boost our health may be filled with toxic substances. If someone is aware of what is going on behind the scene, they would never consume them. Also, some people believe that the clothes we wear today are to keep our bodies healthy. However, in reality, especially with some garments made from genuine leather or real fur nowadays that are prevalent in fashion industry and are often seen as status symbols, some experts have pointed out that the production processes for these leather items release aromatic amines. These are toxic chemicals known to pose significant health risks, ultimately causing direct harm to our well-being. Some can lead to skin problems or even cancer. These illnesses occur due to the process of making products with animal skins. Nowadays, many people particularly like wearing clothes made from lambskin, tiger skin, and various other animal hides. They don't know that this indeed poses numerous dangers to their lives. Now, the original text says, "Many deaths occur as a result of eating, whether from contaminated food, substances consumed for their health benefits that turn toxic in certain conditions, or simply from food ill-suited to a particular person. Then they all become causes of death, and this happens quite frequently. Especially with certain food we believe will improve our health. Actually, not only do they fail to benefit our body, but once eaten, they can become entirely toxic. For instance, in the past, some people intended to harm others. Then they might pretend to welcome them warmly and prepare a variety of dishes. But in fact, they secretly used toxic ingredients in the food and served it as a meal to the person they intended to harm. It is said that certain combinations, like cooking beef with brown sugar or dog meat with eel, can even be fatal after consumption. But many people don't know it. Additionally, some foods may produce toxins during the cooking process or if they are not stored properly. Some foods become poisonous over a period of time, such as potatoes, which develop toxins after sprouting. However, some people may not be aware of these unhealthy foods. Some others might consume such foods due to various unexpected causes. In particular, people today have a strong craving for meat, consuming flesh and blood with little reflection or concern. This is particularly troubling, as it makes the food as harmful as drugs. In 2004, there was a survey in Foshan, Guangdong province, which revealed that more than 1 million residents in this city were infected with Clonorchis sinensis, or Chinese liver fluke. This outbreak was due to local people's habit of eating raw fish. Later on, this was reported in many news outlets. In Tibetan areas, it was common in the past to eat raw lamb, beef, and other types of meat, often viewed as a traditional practice. However, what many people may not realize is that once raw meat enters the body, the bacteria, viruses, and parasites present in the animal are all directly transferred into your body system. Then you begin to develop health issues. Also, some people in southern China like to eat monkey brains, believing it to be a delicacy. However, some medical experts have found that monkeys may carry a highly lethal type of virus known as simian leukemia. This virus can easily infect humans simply through exposure to a monkey's saliva, let alone by eating its brain. This is extremely concerning. Yet people still treat them as delicacies and eat them joyously. Thus, many people hope these foods will benefit their health, but in reality, They are often unaware of the toxins that may develop within their bodies. Ultimately, they have to leave this world. So sometimes, when we see foods in this world, they are quite scary. No matter what you eat, the risks can be truly terrifying. People we encounter in worldly life often lack Buddhist teachings and have no sense for the law of karma. Such a mindset can be quite alarming. Because once their interests are at stake, they can disregard everything else. They will be willing to destroy everything that others have. This may happen. Now, the following text says, nowadays, many people are meat lovers. They devour meat and blood without scruples. As a result, many Tibetans at that time were subject to diseases related to the consumption of meat, including arterial plaque and high blood pressure. Especially nowadays, many people do not eat vegetables, only eat meat, and they consume raw flesh and blood directly. Before Patrul Rinpoche was born, Tibetans were influenced by the traditions of Bon, the indigenous religion of Tibet, and ate meat and blood relentlessly. As I mentioned earlier, now in Han Chinese areas, especially among those who live by the sea, people often eat raw seafood such as shrimp and crab. This trend has gained significant popularity among college students and young people. But actually, eating shrimps and crabs can lead to the introduction of lung flukes into the body, resulting in illness. This is a fact that has already been medically confirmed. Additionally, eating raw blood clams is also dangerous. Such as an outbreak of hepatitis A occurred in Shanghai in 1988, affecting nearly 310,000 people. Investigations proved the outbreak was caused by people eating raw blood clams. Also, a lizard may carry nearly 700 parasites, which can be extremely dangerous if it is eaten. We should be aware of these facts. Of course, people who don't eat meat won't have such concerns. Therefore, we should strongly promote the vegetarian diet. If you truly understand the law of karma, and have read the Shurangama Sutra or the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, which elaborate on this clearly, you will believe the benefits of a vegetarian diet. Even if you don't accept Buddhist views, but only for your own health, I think adopting a vegetarian lifestyle definitely can benefit you significantly. Recently, I read a book compiled by the editorial board of the Elderly of China, in which a journalist said to Master Ben Huan, who is a renowned Chinese monk, most Buddhists don't eat meat, which, in my view, doesn't make sense. Our human body needs nourishment. Master Ben Huan answered, "Look at me. I am 102 years old. Do I look like I'm lacking any nourishment?" What he said was indeed true. Because a vegetarian diet is associated with longevity. Many medical experts and biologists today all advocate for the exclusion of meat from our diets. They argue that consuming meat can lead to digestive issues, particularly in the large intestine, where meat may not break down properly, leading to various health complications. In Japan, there was a professor at Tokyo University called Tomotari Mitsuoka, who began studying human cells and lifespan in 1972, alongside his colleagues at Tokyo University. Later, through their research, they found that inhabitants in the Tokyo area in Japan, today, since there are Japanese people listening to the teachings here, I intentionally mention this. I'm just joking. It's not intentional. It's coincidental. The findings from their research showed that people in the Tokyo area of Japan had an average lifespan of less than 70 years. But there was also a long-living village in the rural areas, where residents generally lived to around 90 years old. What was the reason behind this phenomenon? Some biological experts conducted studies to investigate it, and it was found that urban dwellers in Tokyo are more affluent so they can afford more meat. The consumption of meat will accumulate many residues in the large intestine, producing a great number of gut bacteria and releasing various toxins. This directly weakens the white blood cells. And because people eat flesh and blood for a long time, gradually, after 10 or 20 years, the function of white blood cells declines over time. White blood cells are a key component of the immune system, functioning as the body's primary defense against infections and diseases. Furthermore, the carnivore diet can lead to the accumulation of residues and bacteria in the large intestine. Ultimately, the food cannot be digested and releases various toxins. Therefore, Professor Mitsuoka and his colleagues concluded that cutting out meat consumption and changing to a vegetarian diet can lead to a longer and healthier life. Whereas rural dwellers in the long-living village, due to financial constraints and living conditions, tend to consume a more vegetarian diet, which is high in fiber. So, through the analysis of medical and biological experts, it has become evident that humans are not naturally suited to consume meat. Our digestive system is more optimized for plant-based foods. If you eat meat, especially raw flesh and blood, it directly turns into disease. Various diseases from animals will be transmitted to humans. This directly threatens the extension of our lifespan. This is also the reason why there are so many centenarian monks in Han Chinese, which is far more than among non-Buddhists. Therefore, for those who wish to live a long life, it is rather crucial to develop right view toward a vegetarian diet and adhere to it. For some people in cities, if it is hard for you to completely adopt a vegetarian diet, you may at least reduce the consumption of meat. For example, you may avoid eating meat during the special Buddhist days in each month, and gradually you will build up the habit of eating vegetarian meals. I think it's very necessary, because our life is not long to begin with, and it will be even shorter if we don't eat properly. So everyone should understand this basic knowledge. Now, the original text says, poor diets and unhealthy lifestyles can lead to the development of tumors, phlegm-related disorders, dropsy, and various other illnesses, resulting in countless deaths. For example, nowadays, most avian flu, human flu, and other types of diseases in this world also originate from various dietary reasons. If we could adjust our dietary habits, the world would not be in such a state of panic when facing various disease outbreaks. Likewise, the pursuit of wealth, fame, and other worldly honors drives people to wage wars, confront wild beasts, cross treacherous rivers, and expose themselves to countless other dangers that may ultimately lead to their death. Indeed, in this world, some die while subduing their enemies, while some die when pursuing for fame, fortune, and so on. They may ultimately fall into the mouths of beasts or drown while crossing rivers. There are so many causes of death in the world that are hard to dodge. Therefore, we should always meditate on death and impermanence, whether we are walking or driving. For example, whenever you are driving on a highway, you should bear in mind the teaching of impermanence and have a sense of panic. Because in any second you may be killed in a car accident and no longer live in this world. It is extremely quick to die and transition to the next life. It doesn't even take a minute. Similarly, whenever you walk, you may slip and suddenly fall into a river, being swept away by the rushing water. Or while driving, the car might suddenly fall into a river. Such accidents happen frequently. So, many people think, I won't die too soon because I am still young, and I still have a lot of things unaccomplished. They have many similar reasons, but those are not legitimate reasons, because it is absolutely impossible that anyone is exempt from death due to youth. According to Buddhist logic, this reasoning is a fallacy. Therefore, a good practitioner always remembers the uncertainty of the arrival of death, For example, thinking, "I wonder when I will die." With this thought in mind, they practice diligently and don't waste time on chatting and other trivialities. In comparison, urban-dwelling practitioners lack a sense of impermanence the most. They constantly procrastinate about their Dharma practice, postponing it to the next year, the year after next, or even after their retirement. Once I met a man in his 50s who told me that in 15 years he would come back to Larungar to study the Dharma. What a nice plan for his future. The Dhammapada covered an old man's story. When the Buddha was in the city Shravasti, there lived a wealthy but stingy old Brahmin in his 80s. The old man wanted to build himself an extravagant mansion, so he spent a lot of time supervising the construction work and directing the craftsmen. Through his omniscient wisdom, the Buddha knew the old Brahmin had only one day to live. Therefore, the Buddha came to him in person. However, the old man didn't know it, so he continued to spend his time on meaningless tasks, such as telling the craftsmen that the front of the mansion should be the living room, the left side is for whom to live, how to arrange his children's rooms. In the back is my bedroom, the servants will stay here, etc. He continued planning and designing. The Buddha said to him, "Come here, let me teach you the Dharma of impermanence." But the old Brahmin refused to listen. The Buddha then told him, "Even though you have many children and grandchildren, when impermanence arrives, none of this will be of any use. You should think it over carefully." But the old man replied, "I don't have time today. Let's talk when I have more time." The Buddha could do nothing and left. Shortly after the Buddha left, the old Brahmin walked under a rafter which fell and hit his head. He was killed immediately. When other people in the city heard about this, they felt it was such a pity. Actually, many people in the world are really no different from this old Brahmin. Tibetans have this saying, "Many elderly people die, but their hearts don't die," which means that when some people are nearing death, they are still making plans as if they will live for hundreds of years. All they do every day is make arrangements for their children, grandchildren, or themselves. Therefore, each of us should always think about how long we can remain alive. The power of such thinking is enormous so that we won't overly cling to fame, wealth, and relationships in this life, unlike worldly people who might sacrifice even their lives for these things. If you've practiced impermanence well, on the one hand, you will have the mental strength to face illness and pain bravely. On the other, you won't be devastated when accidents happen to your family and friends, because you have already truly understood that everything is inseparable from impermanence, so the things happening around you are unavoidable. Therefore, the study of Dharma is not merely a superficial religion. Some religions only stay in formality. There is nothing substantial to be found when examining their doctrines deeply. But in Buddhism, the Dharma not only encompasses the ultimate truth of everything, but also encourages us to put the Buddha's teachings into real practice. And every practitioner can cultivate their inner experience to varying degrees when practicing the Dharma. This is what makes Buddhism truly remarkable. Therefore, we should reflect. Because causes of death are so varied, the time of death cannot be determined. With death's causes being so diverse, the moment of death remains uncertain. Some die in the mother's womb. Some breathe their last just after birth, while others perish just as they learn to crawl. As the Buddha taught in the chapter on causes and conditions. Some die in their mother's womb. Some die at birth. Some die while learning to crawl. Some die while learning to run. Just the same as described here. Some die in the womb, being aborted before they are born. Some infants have just entered the world, but tragically, they never get the chance to experience the beauty of life in this world and pass away. Some die when just learning to crawl, others when they can crawl and run about. Death comes in countless ways. Some depart in the prime of life, while others pass away in old age. Some die for lack of timely treatment, while others, despite immediate medical care, the ambulance can't save them and instead returns the body for deliverance. Others waste away, bound to their beds by years of illness, gazing at the living with eyes already hollowed by death. By the time their lives end, they are little more than skeletons draped in skin. I have seen many such patients who linger between life and death for over a decade. They are very pitiful that at the end, their bodies only had skin and bones left. And such patients also want to die sooner. Recently, one person called me and said, "Please grant me blessings so I can die sooner. Living like this, I am a burden to others and also a pain to myself." But if his karma hadn't been exhausted, it was not so easy for him to die sooner. It says in the collection of deliberate sayings, some die old, some die young. Some young adults die in their prime. Therefore, some people die in old age while some die young. As a Chinese proverb says, there is no difference between the old and the young on the way to death. Death takes everyone, old or young, equally. However, some young people do not agree and think, "My hair hasn't turned grey, so how can I die? Absolutely impossible." He sounds so certain of it. Maybe because he has attained the level of Vidyadhara with power over life? Fantastic. Now, the following original text says, "Many people suffering from Dongte disease die suddenly or by accident while they are eating, talking, or working in a halfway. Some even end their own lives." Dongte disease used to exist in Tibetan areas. I am not sure whether it still exists nowadays. This type of disease is quite peculiar that it causes sudden death or sudden collapse. After collapsing, the patients stop breathing and die. It is just like nowadays. Some people sleep at night and don't wake up in the morning as they have already passed away. So this also happens. As I mentioned recently, the Lama next door to me passed into parinirvana while reciting mantras in the Vajra posture. Different from ordinary beings, sublime beings have achieved freedom beyond life and death. Later, many Dharma fellows said a rainbow appeared in the sky that day. I hesitated to believe it at first, because I usually don't simply accept others' claims about miraculous signs. But later, when I saw the photo, I found the rainbow appeared clearly, and the date on the photo confirmed its validity. After seeing this, now, I believe that the Lama has attained achievement. Some great accomplishers manifest in the same way that they enter parinirvana directly. There are many such cases in Dujom Rinpoche's the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. For example, one lineage disciple of Vairotsana put his shawl and mala on a branch of a cypress tree, then directly flew to the pure realm. The realization state, as shown in this case, is beyond the imagination and reach of an ordinary person. While ordinary beings may die suddenly because they cannot help but experience the effect of karma at the moment of death, some also commit suicide. Suicide is quite common nowadays. I once read in the Global Times that there are over 1 million people commit suicide globally each year, with China accounting for 30%. Statistically, one person commits suicide every 40 seconds worldwide. In China, a suicide occurs in every 2 minutes. This does not count those who attempt suicide but are unsuccessful. The number would increase significantly if we include the parents of those who have committed suicide, as many parents also wish to die with their children. Therefore, if you observe carefully, the causes of death are incredibly vast. And we ourselves exist amid a gathering of death's causes. Our life force is extremely fragile. Among these numerous causes of death, the causes sustaining life are as weak as a candle flame in the wind. Indeed, we are surrounded by so many causes of death, whether we are eating, walking, or riding in vehicles. Even taking a train is not that safe, as you can see how many train accidents there are globally. Flying and driving are the same, if not worse. But even staying home, one can suddenly die at home. So it is true that there is no place where death doesn't exist. As said in Nagarjuna's precious garland, constantly surrounded by causes of death, we are just like lamps in a blast. We are long-term residents living in the combination of various causes of death, amid all kinds of natural and man-made disasters. Our lives are akin to a lamp in a storm, which can be extinguished very quickly. It also says in the Kalpana Manditika, the stage of imagination, life is just like a lamp in the wind, not knowing when it will be extinguished. We have no idea of when our life will end. The Buddha used other similes to describe the uncertainty of death, such as life lasts between one breath and the next, or life is more fragile than a bubble in a stream. Our lives are just like bubbles that can burst instantly. Some children with a whoosh blow bubbles, then the bubbles vanish completely. While at the same time, we are still thinking about planning our prosperous lives. I should dress well and put on makeup every day. I will save much more money in the bank. There are countless plans in our minds, but the quality of our life is not that promising. Therefore, everyone should often reflect on the impermanence of life. There is no assurance that death won't strike this very moment, nor can you be certain that tomorrow won't find you reborn as a horned beast or a creature with tusks. You must recognize that the time of death is utterly uncertain, and no one can know where their next birth will be. Every moment, we should think that it is very likely death will suddenly strike us like a thunderbolt on our heads. At that time, we might not even have time to breathe or utter a word. Everyone should reflect on your life. What is it truly like? Today, I am still alive and sitting among all of you, but by tomorrow morning, I might have left this world. Moreover, the karma of sentient beings is inconceivable. It's very possible to be reborn as a horned animal. Some people claim that it is impossible to become a horned animal like yak or other animals in a short time, as this typically requires a long gestation period. However, the horned beings mentioned here do not necessarily have to be like yaks. There are other beings that are born from moisture, as mentioned in the Abhidharma Soka, such as certain types of insects, which can emerge from moisture and mature into beings almost instantaneously or overnight. If you look at some insects through a magnifying glass, you'll see sharp horns on their heads, which can look quite terrifying. It's very possible that yesterday I was human, but I could become one of these beings just in a few days. Therefore, when we truly contemplate how we live within samsara, we shouldn't remain scattered and distracted for a long time. Instead, we should earnestly put this understanding into real practice. Engaging in practice is essential. Next, we discuss intense awareness of impermanence. As the original text says, reflect wholeheartedly on death, constantly and in every situation. Whether standing, sitting, or lying down, remind yourself, this may be my final act in this life, and meditate on it with unwavering resolve. So, in the following part, we need to meditate on the impermanence of life, deeply, with strong desire and determination. The intensive awareness is the strong eager to cut off all discursive thoughts and focus on seeking the path of liberation, which is meditating on impermanence in this context. So, how to meditate on impermanence? We should do it anywhere, at any time, in any body postures, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, in every manner. And think, this could be the last time I live in this world. Now let's explain each one below. Even when traveling to other places, we must consider we might die in a foreign land, never having the chance to return home. If we go on business trips, travel, or go somewhere, be prepared in our hearts that we may never come back again. I often do this, but sometimes my practice on this doesn't suffice. As I was just thinking, whenever I leave Larungar for elsewhere, I ponder on impermanence, feeling I might not come back. But when I came to the Dharma hall from my cabin to give teachings a few minutes ago, I felt certain that I would return to my cabin after class. Therefore, it seems that when I travel afar, I will meditate on death, whereas when I leave my cabin briefly, I'll hardly think about death. Actually, wherever we go, be it to the toilet or to fetch water, we should tell ourselves, maybe I will die there. Maintain this strong awareness of impermanence at all times. When setting out on a journey, or even resting on steps, think, I might die right here. Whether on the road or pausing on stairs, consider, this could be where I die. Wherever you sit, contemplate, I might die in this very spot. In all four postures, walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, wherever we stay, whether spending a single night somewhere or staying for a week, think, I might die here. Of course, worldly people may find it weird and won't believe it will happen because they have never practiced impermanence before. Many worldly people have a particularly strange thought. They believe it is impossible for a person in good health to die while just sitting on the stairs. And it is too pessimistic to live in such a fear every day and to have no grand goals in life. Being caught up in such contemplation every day isn't good. However, what they think is not true. What worldly people pursue in life is completely different from what we practitioners are thriving to attain, which is the renunciation. Once we've developed genuine renunciation through practice, we will have no interest in anything except liberation from samsara. Therefore, as soon as renunciation arises in a person, the person may want to immediately take ordination and devote themselves to Dharma practice, and no one can dissuade them from doing it. This is because they have understood the truth of everything, and no longer wish to wait in the samsara. In contrast, if we haven't generated genuine renunciation, we will still cling to worldly pursuits. Hence, there is a lack of resonance between practitioners and worldly individuals. If you have generated conviction about impermanence, you will definitely become disenchanted with worldly concerns. While some people only understand Buddhism superficially, without truly generating a firm resolve, that is why their actions don't align with this understanding. In reality, if renunciation has arisen within our mind, and we truly want to attain liberation, we will lose interest in any worldly things. This is just in the same way that a gallbladder patient sees greasy food and shows no interest. The above is how we should think wherever we are during the day. When we go to bed at night, we should also think, I might die in bed tonight, and tomorrow I may not get up. Whether in a hotel or at your own home, always think this way when sleeping at night. I often reflect on this, that I might die here and might not wake up tomorrow. So, I always pray to the 3 jewels at night before I lie down. If my mind is clear and I don't have discursive thoughts, I often think about this. Actually, reflecting on impermanence should become a habit. If you think about it every night before going to bed, eventually the awareness of impermanence will arise in you naturally. Praying to the Guru and 3 jewels will also become a natural part of your routine. You won't act like an animal without any Buddhist awareness. That is just falls on the ground, and starts to snore when it's time to sleep, and wakes up in a daze when it's time to get up. Then, upon waking in the morning, think, I might die today. Tonight, I may not have the chance to sleep again. Those who practice well indeed maintain such thoughts when rising. But for those who don't practice regularly, even when we teach this, it may not affect them deeply. One must spontaneously and uncontrollably focus solely on contemplating death. The Kadampa Geshes of old, before going to sleep at night, would contemplate, who knows if I'll need to make a fire tomorrow morning? Each night as they went to bed, they would feel uncertain whether they would need to light a fire upon waking. Thus, they would leave their fires uncovered and their bowls turned upside down, maintaining unwavering certainty about death in their hearts at every moment. In the past, Tibetans had no stove or gas for cooking. At that time, these Kadampa Geshes usually relied on the 3-stone fire, which was arranged with 3 stones to make a stand for a cooking pot. Before going to bed at night, they would put several large pieces of yak dung or burning wood in the fire, cover them with ashes, and finally put a big piece of rock on the top. After getting up in the morning, they would push aside the ashes, find the embers, and make fire easily again. When I was young, Tibetans lived like this, but not anymore today. On the one hand, it is difficult to make fire with flint, steel, and tinder. On the other, the matches and lighters have made it easier to start a fire. But in ancient times, every Tibetan household had to cover the embers for the night. However, due to their good practice on impermanence, those Kadampa practitioners thought they might die at night, and the next day there might be no need to light a fire, so they never covered the embers for the night. They would also turn their bowls upside down. According to the Tibetan tradition, turning someone's bowl over is a symbol that the person has died, so normally a person never turns his bowl upside down while he is still alive. If a child does so, his parents will beat him hard, thinking it is inauspicious. Therefore, from a worldly perspective, those Kadampa practitioners' behaviors might be hard to understand, such as thinking about whether I will die if I go somewhere today. Although I am not from the Kadampa lineage, every time I travel, I also think, will I die during this trip? Afterward, I would arrange things accordingly. Then some people will say, you won't die, won't die. Once when I was about to leave Larongar, I told a Dharma fellow, please help me arrange my money if necessary. Let me tell you what is for life release. Hearing my words, the Dharma friend was very scared. Therefore, he immediately said, you won't die. You won't. You'll live long, very long. He thought it was inauspicious, thinking I must know through my clairvoyance that my death was approaching. Actually, it's not like that. Everyone should be well prepared. Everyone should prepare for their death. This is the Kadampa tradition, which has nothing to do with being auspicious or not. However, some worldly people may think, I'm going somewhere to get something done today. If right at the beginning I worry about whether I will die, will it bring me bad fortune? Actually, there is nothing you should worry about. If you always contemplate impermanence and death, at a certain point, you will naturally develop conviction about impermanence, which will motivate you to practice diligently. Such resolve will arise. We shouldn't just pay lip service here. We need to put it into real practice. Some senior practitioners never allow their minds to wander, owing to their practice on impermanence. They filled their schedules with Dharma practices, and we should follow their example by practicing impermanence wholeheartedly and diligently. Let's make sure we never slack off or become negligent. Okay, let's stop here.
Bandara